normally I would slip in any outtakes at the beginning of the vlog. But when you see the number of mistakes I've made in one of my FOs, you'll see why I didn't need to make any more today. Hello lovelies, and welcome to the June 2024 episode of the Not Quite Enough Yarn podcast. My name's Lesley. This is a podcast about spinning, knitting, crochet, general yarn crafts, recorded in the south coast of the UK. Thank you for being here. Whether you're a new visitor or you've been here lots of times before, you're very welcome, and I'm delighted that you're here, so thank you very much. I normally record throughout the month and then put the pieces together. Haven't done that much this month, it's been busy. So there'll be fewer sections, but hopefully the same amount of content. Does that make sense? I do hope so. It's called the Not Quite Enough Yarn. Oh, how many times have I done this? It's called the Not Quite Enough Yarn podcast because although I have lots, I tend to only buy sort of one skein at a time if I see something pretty. There will be evidence of that shortly. Then I buy one skein and I put several of these different skeins together to make a garment or whatever I'm putting together. There is a make-along happening. This is the Modification MAL, and that's running till the end of September. And the idea is any pattern that you're making or creating yourself, because that's a modification, you're starting with a blank piece of paper, that's definitely a mod. Anything that you're making that you are changing in some way. If it's just straight yarn substitution, so you're not having to alter stitch or row counts or anything like that, then that doesn't count. But anything else does. So if you make a sweater a different length to the original pattern, if you put a different toe in a sock, if you put a different crown in a hat, if you put a different sleeve shape, all of these count as modifications. So that's all run on Ravelry. If you have trouble using Ravelry, please email your entry to me, and my email address is notquiteenoughyarn@gmail.com, and I will add them to the Ravelry thread. I draw every quarter, so there will be a draw at the end of this month, and there is a lovely skein of yarn from Folkestone Harbour Yarns and some stitch markers as the prize for this quarter, and then I'll do a quarter prize and a grand prize at the end of September. I think those are the notices. Everything will be linked below that I talk about. Yeah, it's been a busy month for lots of different reasons, so there won't be huge amounts of finished objects this month, but I do have one. This was my car project. So in my work I often have to sit waiting for appointments and things that I'm doing, so I have crafting in the car to do, usually something simple that I can pick up and put down. And I have been working on this little baby blanket, which I'm going to hold up and then I'll tell you all about it. So this is the DK 8-point round ripple baby blanket by Samantha Atanasio. I hope I'm pronouncing that properly. And fitting with the modification theme, this is actually a modification of a pattern by Rachel, I think it's Rachel Line, which was a worsted version. Both of those patterns are free. They're on Ravelry. I'll link on the notes below. It's about 3 feet at its widest. I haven't washed and blocked this because I wasn't making it for anyone in particular. I had some yarn that I didn't know quite what else to do with, and I thought this would be a good choice. This will go into the gift box, if you like, my imaginary gift box. It will go into a pile or a bag somewhere. So next time I hear of someone who's having a baby that I would like to make a gift for, they can have this blanket, and I'll wash it and block it at that point. I just think if I do it at the moment, it's going to be folded up. I don't know how long it's going to be stored, so it will probably need washing and blocking again then. The yarn was all new. It's not as if, you know, I've been dragging it through the mud or anything like that, so I'm just going to leave it and wash it when I'm about to give it. So So that is that. The yarn is Hayfield Hawaii, and this is some yarn that I was given in a bag of, I think it was my sister who gave me a big bag of yarn. So I say I think it was my sister. I know she did, but I know someone else did as well. But I think it was in the batch from her. And there were 4 balls of the Hayfield Hawaii. And it's a DK weight, sort of boucle texture. And I didn't really know what else to do with it. It's 50% nylon, 50% acrylic. And in theory, being DK weight, it could go with other DK things. But I wasn't really sure how I would use it, and I thought this would be a good project. Also, I think it's a good baby gift because it's a kind of handy pram size, hopefully. But it's machine washable because it's an acrylic nylon mix, so that's all good. I had 4 skeins of it, which came to a total of 564 metres, and I pretty much used it all. I think I've got a tiny little nugget left. So I followed the pattern until I was getting very close to running out of yarn, and then I did my usual, which is a crab stitch edge, which is double crochet stitches, or single crochet if you use US terms, but instead of working, and I'm right-handed, instead of working clockwise, I work them anti-clockwise, so you get that slightly picot-nubbly effect. Obviously, if you're left-handed and you normally would work anti-clockwise, then you'd go clockwise and you'd get the same effect. So that's my finished object, and I feel it may be the only crochet or knitted finished object this month, but I'm pleased with it. It worked up pretty quickly. Like I say, it's a free pattern, very easy to memorise. Once you get to about row 2, you kind of know where you're going with it, so I didn't need to carry the pattern, I could just work on it, and kept working until I was out of yarn, so happy with that. The other thing what I have made is some spinning, some yarn. So this is yarn made from, it was a braid from Made in England. Now this was an Etsy shop, and I will put the link in the notes, but having looked on the Etsy shop, I was wondering if they were still working. It would appear at the moment the shop is on a holiday, a hiatus, and judging by the feedback that's been left, it's been closed for a little while, so I don't know if the plan is for them to return to dyeing or not. Don't know anything about the business, except they make very pretty fibre. So this is in the Monet's Garden colourway, and it's 60% merino, 40% bamboo, which made it quite interesting to spin with, or to spin rather. A lot of the fibres that I've been spinning have been predominantly single type of fibre, so all merino, all BFL, all Poledale, this mixture. I did find a couple of things about it. It did leave quite a bit of fluff on my clothes. I know some people have like spinning aprons, and I can understand why, because some fibres do leave a lot of themselves behind, and this did leave quite a bit on my clothes. The other thing is, when I soaked it, a lot of colour came out. Now I did soak it for quite a while, which is my way of saying I put it in the basin in the bathroom and then forgot about it for a couple of hours. But when I went back to the basin, there was a definite ring, well not ring, there was a definite mark between where the water had been and where it hadn't, and I had to get cleaner out to, it wasn't something I could just wipe around, I had to get some cleaner out to get it off the sink. So a lot of colour came out, and it actually dyed the ties. I've got cotton ties on this, and they were white, they're now sort of pale blue, so a lot of colour came out. Hopefully it's now exhausted. Obviously I'll be careful when working with it and when washing whatever I've made for the first time, just to try and make sure that if there is any more colour left in here, it doesn't then go on to other stuff. I made a classic 3-ply, so I split the braid down its length into 3, spun 3 individual singles on different bobbins, and then just plied them together. It's come up as quite a thick yarn, so it's about 10 wraps per inch. I've got 119 metres in 115 grams, so it is quite dense. My handspun is quite dense. That's just how I spin. And I really do enjoy the colours on this one. Ignore that because that's one of the ties. But lovely sort of turquoise into the phone ringing. I'm assuming that was a spam call because it rung off as soon as the answer phone kicked in. So nice feel to this. You could almost mistake it for a cotton. You know, some merinos have that kind of feel to them that's quite cottony, and with the bamboo as well, it feels more like a plant-based fibre or yarn than an animal-based one. And I'm very happy with it. Do like the colours very much. Because I didn't really know what to call this kind of greeny blue. It's not really a teal, it's a sort of sea glass colour, I suppose, would be the best description, along with the lilacs. So I'm happy with how that came out. Talking of that sort of sea glass sort of colour, although this is a bit green in comparison, I bought yarn. I don't care. For years I had not been buying yarn, and now I'm not going mad, but if I'm somewhere where there's yarn for sale, I will probably buy it. It's very important to support new businesses and independent businesses. And my sister stayed for a week in the month, and one of our trips out was to Lewes, which is the county town of East Sussex. Very old town. I like Lewes very much. It has a lot of old stuff in it. I like old places. And it has a new yarn shop. So the yarn shop is called Ida's House, and it's owned and run, I assume she owns and runs it, by a lady called Jane, who we met, who was very nice, good fun. Interesting selection of yarns in there. I'll put a link to their website below. I could have bought a lot more. I'll put some footage in here. I didn't take particularly brilliant footage, but initially what you can see first is their classroom. So they're running classes, they're running courses, and I think they have quite a good sort of itinerary coming up. And then there's the shop itself. So I bought this, which is by Wool Kitchen, who that's a yarn company that I like very much, and I have several skeins. So we've got this lovely, again, this kind of greeny, it's coming up a little bit brighter, it's slightly more blue than it's showing on here. That might be better. Again, a sort of sea glass type of colour with bright bits. One of the courses that they're running at Ida's House, from what Jane was telling me, is on, I've gone blank on the name. When the name comes to me, I'm going to type it in here. But it's when you have pooling like this. Assigned pooling. Assigned pooling. So when you have changes of colour like this, you then make a feature of them. So they're not just part of the fabric, you make a feature. Now I've seen patterns with this, sometimes you have a kind of wave effect, sometimes you'll have bobbles. Usually something textural to make a feature of these colours. So that's one of the classes that they're running. I'm not in a position to commit myself to any courses at the moment, but I will keep an eye on their website, and I will return to their shop. So thank you for your hospitality, Jane, and wishing you all success. I think the shop will do very well. She used to run a shop in another town, and customers from that shop are coming to Lewes for some of her courses and groups, so I'm not at all surprised, and I'm sure that the business will do very well. But this is very pretty. I haven't told you what it is. It's by Wool Kitchen, as we say. It's their fingering 4-ply, 75% merino, 25% nylon sock, 425 meters per 100 grams, and it's in the Aurora colourway. And I think it's very pretty. Don't know what I'm going to make with it. No surprise there then. But it's very nice. So I think that's all I've got to show you at the moment. But I shall return with more stuff. Cheers. I've got a co-host, as you can see. Hello, lovelies. My little friend, who has been sitting next to me for the last couple of hours, not wanting to come near me, now wants to sit on my lap because I'm talking to you. Bless her. I have been to a fibre festival. It's a very small one in Eastbourne, which is kind of half an hour that way. And I bought some yarn. And then when I came home, a parcel had arrived of yarn that I have very, very generously been given. So let me start with that first of all, because Joe got in touch and said that he had this yarn and wondered if it would be of any use to me. And I said, thank you very much. And she has sent me 5 balls each of these colourways. Did you want to sniff this? So this is King Cole Forest, which is a recycled Aran. And these are 100 gram balls, 300 meters per ball, 35% wool, 20% acrylic, 20% polyamide, 25% viscose. And it's a lovely soft yarn. It looks as if it would be quite sort of toothy woolly, but it's really nice and soft. This is the Heartwood Forest colourway. So it's this kind of pale beige. It's got flecks of colour in, tend to be mostly kind of oranges and a few sort of darker colours. So a few sort of. And the other colourway is Forest of Dean. And you've got this lovely dark grey, and these flecks are brighter colours. So there are reds and blues and orange. So thank you so much. Let me just go back into focus. So thank you so much, Joe. That is incredibly kind of you. Thank you. Brilliant. Thank you so much. I had also bought myself some yarn today. Folkestone Harbour yarn were at this fibre festival, and I like the yarn. I've met the lady before, and I've also bought from them for prizes in the past, which I've also done this month, and I will be showing the prize when I do the draw later. If you saw the vlog, the first vlog of June, you'll have already seen it. But I bought for myself this lovely pink colour called Boudoir. So it's a sock yarn, it's 75% superwash merino, 25% nylon. And you've got this lovely pale pink, but with lots of strong colours in there. So that's very pretty. I also bought from another vendor a lot of fibre. And some of it's quite bright. And some of it, where have I put that, is down on the floor, is quite pale. I'll show you it all as I spin it, so goodness knows when that will be. And like I say, if you go back to the first vlog of the month, the fibre was shown there. But it's a very abundant day. And I've still got this dog on my lap. Hello. See? Conditions I have to work under. Hey, what's the matter? I don't think I can move for the next little while, do you? Hello, lovelies. Now, Mai himself was away in North Berwick in Scotland, and he went shopping. because he's a good lad and he wants to lift back from the station when he gets home, so these things even out. But there's a shop called Chandler's. As you can see, they're at 65 the High Street, Berwick. And he said that they are very well stocked with yarn and a good range of yarns. So they had some commercial yarns, quite a good range there, plus some hand dyeds and some locals. And that is what he very kindly bought me. So I have 3 here to show you. If you saw the vlog a couple of weeks ago, you've already seen them, but I'll show you them anyway. So this is Almanac Artisan Yarn Boutique. It's a 50%, 50%, 50%, yeah, that works. One of those 50% is merino, the other is silk. It's a double knitting weight, 200 meters per 100 gram, hand dyed. Very pretty selection of sort of pinks and into lavenders and lilacs, and round to kind of very soft peaches, this colour. Very pretty yarn, feels absolutely glorious. That would be nice as a cowl, I think, because it would be nice and soft against the neck. This is Artisan Yarn's Merlino 4-ply. It's a merino nylon mix. 400 meters per 100 grams, 75/25. No colourway because it's small batch dyeing, but great colours in this. So turquoise, yellows, rusty colours, into browns, all sorts of loveliness. So that's very nice. And then this one I looked at and thought it was alpaca, but the label tells me otherwise. It's strangely wound at this point. Again, Artisan Yarns, small batch custom spun yarns from North Berwick. And this is Corriedale mohair, so 50% of each. Hand painted, 100 grams, 400 meters. Lovely soft greens here. That's coming up a little darker. Yes, I think that's a little more accurate. So a lovely sort of tonal green. So feeling very spoiled. Not sure what I'm going to do with the 2 4-plies yet. Like I say, I think this really needs to be a cowl, just because it feels so lovely and the colours would work so well. Just a fairly plain knitted tube would show the colours of this yarn very well, so I think that might be a soon cast on item. But feeling very spoiled. He would have been back in Scotland a little later, but the golf results didn't work out that way. That would have been back to St Andrews, which he's been to many times before. So he's at home instead. And the dog especially is delighted, because she loves having Daddy here. Yes, she does. Yes, I do feel very much like the third wheel sometimes. But yeah, beautiful yarns from North Berwick. As I say, the shop is called Chandler's. He obviously mentioned that I had a podcast, because he said, they said, oh, will she mention us? Yeah. And he said it's a very nice shop with very helpful staff. So if you are in North Berwick, a good place to spend a time. Cheers. Hello, you fabulous examples of gorgeousness. Despite my own expectations, I've got another finished object. It's quite a big one. So, bragging again. So I'm going to spend a lot of time telling you all about it. People who've been here a little while may remember that had a lot of double knitting weight merino yarn in a number of different colours, but colours that I felt went together well. And I was working out how to put them together. My first thought was the Ebby cardigan. I haven't written down the design, I've got lots of notes here. I will still make one of those, I think, but because of the way it's constructed, it wasn't giving me the effect I wanted with changing colours. So I didn't have quite enough yarn for what I was looking for there. Then I decided to unpick that and to make a top-down Henley, which is quite a nice pattern, but it was coming out quite dense. And also I'd made some mistakes and I was thinking, do I go back, what do I do? And I thought, will I actually use the sweater? Because I felt, because it was coming out quite dense at the gauge of that particular pattern, it was going to be quite warm and probably a bit too warm for me. In the meantime, rumbling along, the great thing about watching other people's podcasts is that you see what they're making and you think, oh yeah, that's good. So I've seen a few people, particularly Barbara from Flame and Fibre and Aquila from Lefty Knitter, make a poncho called the Kuri Inn. And again, I've not written down the designer. Sorry. And they both seemed really happy with this poncho, and it was actually following Barbara's progress in particular that it just, I suppose because she was talking about it quite regularly, it was kind of going in here, and then seeing Aquila's as well, which was made out of Handspun and is lovely. And I thought actually a poncho would be quite handy, something to have sitting close to my office chair or on the back of my office chair, and then just something to kind of throw over my shoulders when it's cold. So I thought, well, that would be a good use for this yarn. But I am not in a mood at the moment to be doing big knitted projects that are going to take a while. I have a number of knitted projects on the go, and they've all sort of ground to a halt. I need to get back into it. But the thought of crocheting a poncho really appealed to me. So I wasn't going to follow the Kuri Inn, beautiful though it is. I thought I'll do something that would just be quicker to make, would grow quicker. I also had two other thoughts, because obviously I am a genius. The first is that I wouldn't have it as all one piece poncho. I've got mine with this. If a poncho's a sweater, mine's a cardigan, if you see what I mean. So it's more like a cape, I suppose, or a capelet. And the other genius idea I had was when I unpicked the Henley, I didn't unpick the collar that it had. So I've kept that on there. So this is a knitted piece. And then I just went on and picked up stitches, crocheted into the stitches from the needle to then go from the knitted piece into a crochet piece. So that was the start of it. To put some short row shaping into the back, rather than do back and forth, I just did a couple of rows of slightly taller stitches. So most of this is in UK treble, so US term would be double crochet. And so in a few sort of rows here, we've got some doubles of those, double trebles, double doubles. I suppose the double double in US terms is a treble, which is a... Anyway, in UK terms it's a double treble. And that's then putting a little bit of height into the back to give a bit of shaping for the extra height that you want on the back neck. I decided to put some cables in, just for a bit of interest. And these are a simple 6-stitch cable. I felt like something was catching on my nail then. Which most of the way down I've had twisting in the same direction. There are mistakes in this. Oh look, there's one. Because most of these twists, that one kind of meanders. It's fine. I've unpicked this so many times because this is the third attempt to use the yarn, and also because it is a sit by my chair, throw on when I'm cold, I'm not too precious about if there are design details in it. So there are lots. So with the cables, I work front post stitches. Like I say, it's a 6-stitch cable, so I would just skip 3, do front post double trebles into the next 3, 1 in each, and then go back and do work in the stitches that I previously skipped. And depending on how I want the twist of the cable, I'll either go into the back of them or go into the front of them. So that is a very poor description of crochet cables. There are lots of very good tutorials on YouTube should you require information, because clearly I'm not going to be any use at all. So what I did is took on board one of the things that Barbara was saying as she was making her Korean poncho, because she was having, as she was making it, she was thinking, do I want it longer, do I want it to keep getting wider, and she was saying basically it's like a raglan increase and you just keep going. So I've got one of these cables at what would be a raglan increase, so 2 on each side, 1 down. Again, if this were a sweater, that would be the sleeve. So in terms of my increases to make it bigger, I didn't write anything down, and I just kept trying it on as I went along. So I would try it on, and if I felt that the sleeves were increasing at a good rate but the back and fronts were a bit narrow, then I would put extra increases on the back and fronts and carry on the same rate with the sleeves, that kind of thing. So it was quite an organic process, which makes it sound far more noble than it was. But yeah, it was just try it on, see what I need at each stage. So that was what I did. I did do a lot of these increases in the fronts to make sure that it came round and sort of covered in the front. And also I did a few increases in the back, as well as on the cables, you know, by the cables to show where the raglan seams would be. I did a few in the middle just to help give it a bit more width where I felt it was needed. I'm going to put some pictures in of me wearing it, so you can get a sense of what it looks like and how long it is and that sort of thing. So I shall put those in here. And whilst you're looking at those, I will talk about the yarns. So these were all merino or merino mixes, and they're all double knitting weight, but they are from a variety of manufacturers and have been added to the stash over a period of time. So there are some yarns there from Jenny Watson, the Jenny Watson Pure Merino DK. The variegated yarn at the bottom is Wool and More DK. We've got some King Cole Luxury Merino DK, some Rooster Al Merino DK, which is alpaca and merino. Some Yarn Stories Spectrum Yarns Fine Merino DK. So yes, lots of different but easy to put together yarns. What else can I tell you? I did at one point make slits for armholes, which sounds like I'm being rude, armholes, because I felt that I would need somewhere, you know, a way of putting my arms through that then didn't cause everything to kind of ruck up. Now, if I was designing a poncho or a cape from scratch, I would put vertical slits for armholes. This was a make it up as I go along, so I put in horizontal ones, and all I did with that was just not work the next stitches but do foundation trebles to then leave a gap between one row and the next. A bit like a big buttonhole where you'd cast off at one row and cast on at the next, but the crochet equivalent of that, which is easier. When I got to the point where I thought, actually I'm finishing this is the length that I want it to be, I realised that I didn't actually need those slits for the hands to come through, because I'd built enough fabric into the fronts that I could sit, if I was typing on my keyboard, there would be enough fabric to go over my arms and to keep them warm. So I've just sewn those slits up. I was worried they were going to pull the fabric of the item too much. I was going to put buttons in to kind of secure them so that when I didn't need them, they didn't cause the whole thing to sag. But I'm glad that I could just sew them up and not need them, so that's good. Because this is something I've made, I did a crab stitch edging, because that's what I always do. Well, that's not true. I either do a crab stitch or a shell. This was crab stitch because I felt it would fit in with the style of the thing better. I use the word style very loosely. And the other thing that I did was add a couple of buttons, because although I wanted it to be open fronted, I wanted to be able to close it as required. And I was initially going to make some crochet loops to go over these buttons, and these are just a couple of old buttons from stash. They don't match, it doesn't matter. But because these cables have nice long stitches in them, I didn't need to make crochet loops, because the first stitch of the cable would do that job, or the first two if I feel that would be more better for the fabric. Yeah. So that is that. I think those are all my notes. There's just under 750 grams of yarn, so it is quite a thick cosy piece, and I haven't written down how many meters that is. I'll put that on screen, and that means that it's eligible for taking part in a make along. And not only that, I'm remembering to do that. The lovely Anne of the No Excuses podcast runs make-alongs pretty much throughout the year, but I'm sure you know that because you would be watching her, I'm sure. And if you're not, I would suggest you do. One of the make-alongs that she's got running this year is called The Bigger the Better, and the idea is it's for projects where you've got over 400 grams of yarn. So that could be a sweater, a garment of some sort, or if you make socks, hats, whatever, if you've got enough of them to be over 400 grams of yarn, so, you know, a collection of hats, a collection of socks, what have you. So I'm going to enter this into Anne of Sparnitz, sorry, Sparnitz is her username, Anne of the No Excuses podcast, The Bigger the Better, make along. Because it certainly meets the 400 grams criteria by some way. So yes, a finished object. I've been working pretty much exclusively on this, which is why it's an FO that I wasn't expecting. I do have other projects here, I've got several, but this just felt like a good thing to be working on. The rows were getting pretty long by the time I got down to the end, but they weren't so long that it felt like they were never ending. And because by that point I knew I was getting near the end of the item, I was happy to keep going. So got a few little nuggets left of the yarns, so they will go into scrap projects. But I've made for myself something very nice and warm for my office in the winter, with the collar that will go over the back neck, because I don't like things too tight. Excuse me, sorry, I'm coughing at that point, which is you'll understand why I'm chuckling. I don't like things that are tight around my throat, but I do like things on the back of my neck, so reusing this collar from the knitted Henley pattern would work well, has worked well for that. So I suspect come the winter you will see this in vlogs and podcasts, and I hope to get a fair amount of use out of it. Cheers. Hello lovelies. Vinyl section, so we've got winners and one last work in progress to show you. So winners first of all, so this is for the make along. Thank you to everyone who's taken part. It's great to see not only the things that you're making and modifying, but also the things that you're sharing with each other. So talking about the projects, offering praise, offering advice, all those lovely things. So the draw was from post number 703 to 1061, and the pattern prize was post number 1024, who is KHG Knits. That's Katie in Virginia Beach, Virginia. And Katie was responding to another person's comment. So congratulations, Katie. If you'd be kind enough to contact me, Ravelry is probably the easiest, but by any of the other methods, and let me know what pattern you'd like, I will get that to you. So thank you very much. The yarn prize is post number 775, and that is Tony 810, and that's Tony from Queens, New York, who made the Prairie Socks by Kay Jones but added a ruffle, which is a nice touch. So congratulations, Tony, love the project, thank you so much for taking part. And just to remind you, she said rattling and rustling and throwing things on the floor, I will be sending you this skein of yarn from Folkestone Harbour Yarn, and where's the stitch markers gone? There they are. And these little beach hut stitch markers. So if you'd be kind enough to either on Ravelry or email me notquiteenoughyarn@gmail.com and let me have your postal address, I will get these to you. Thanks for taking part. Thank you to all of you. As I often say, I'm sorry there's only kind of one prize, or one pattern prize and one physical prize, because I'd love to be able to do more. Thank you for taking part. I hope you're enjoying your projects. I hope you're enjoying the modifications you're making. Whether it's something you always do or whether it's something you're doing for the first time, I hope that you're pleased with the result. And thank you for including it in the make-along. Really do appreciate it. That is all I've got to talk about, except one last work in progress, which is a modification that doesn't require any modifying. Allow me to explain. I wanted to make a cardigan at a fairly loose gauge, so I made the magpie tendency into a cardigan a little while ago, and I find it's one that I wear quite often. It's light, it's warm, but it's light. So I wanted to make a cardigan with a similar gauge, and I was happy to make the same again, but I thought I would have a look and see what other patterns are available at that sort of gauge. And I came across the Turtle Dove cardigan, which I completely misnamed on a vlog a week or two ago, so you might be chuckling if you saw that. It's definitely the Turtle Dove cardigan, which is by Melissa Clulo. I hope I'm pronouncing that right. And the yarn is a bit unusual. I had some cones of lace weight yarn, and it's quite a rough silk that I got for absolutely bargain prices a while ago, but I've never really used much of them. So I thought I would ply them with some lace weight wool yarn, and I've got in this 2 threads of grey and 1 of pale blue, along with an undyed lace weight yarn, to create this sort of marled effect. It's coming out to about a 4-ply fingering weight yarn, which is working for this gauge. And this is the cardigan so far. So it's quite drapey because of the high silk content. I plied them all on my wheel because when I'm doing this type of thing, I quite like to have a sort of true marling. When you're holding strands together, you sometimes get patches of one colour, patches of another, and I wanted something more even. Now, I am going to run out of yarn up to a point, in as much as this is all that's left of the first of the lace weights. But I have another similar lace weight, more of a white, so slightly brighter. But I've done the same thing again, and I do have lots of the silk, so making enough yarn to make this cardigan should not be a problem. Me being me, I'm already thinking, I've got some pink, maybe I should put pink in one of them. No, Lesley, don't do it. Just be a grown-up and make something that's more or less all the same colour, just for the novelty value of nothing else. So this is what I have so far. I'm working my way down to the split for the sleeves, and this is where the modification that isn't a modification comes in. The design has a very deep raglan. Now it doesn't come with a schematic, so I couldn't see the measurements, although they are listed in the pattern, but as you can see by the sketch, it is a very deep raglan, deeper than I would want. And it's a free pattern on Ravelry, so I'm comfortable sort of talking about it. For my size, it says once you've done the raglan increases, then knit down until you've got to, I think it's 15 inches. That's deeper than I would want, so I had a sort of measure of some sweaters that I have that I like the fit of, I like the depth of the arm, and they tend to work out about 13 inches for my size. I'm making the largest size of this, which is finish measurement of 76.75 inches, so it will be very oversized on me, but that's how I want it to be. So as you can see, a very size inclusive pattern, because the smallest chest circumference is 44 3/4 inches, goes up to 76 3/4 inches, recommends 12 to 14 inches of positive ease. So that takes it from a sort of 32, 33 bust size, chest size, to a 64. So good size range on it. Also what I like about it is it's one of these where your button band is knitted in, you don't have to pick up stitches afterwards. Because I always find that quite a laborious process, and I try to do it as scientifically as possible, and I kind of divide the length and, you know, sort of work out the gauge, but if you can do it all in one hit, I'm on board for that. So that's all included. As I say, the length of the raglan is deeper than I would want, but my gauge is going to help me here, because my stitch gauge matches the pattern. My row gauge, I have more rows per inch than shown in the pattern. So if I knit the number of rows shown in the pattern, I will have a shorter raglan. Ta-da! I love it when a plan comes together. So although technically this will be a modification, because I'm going to, once I've done the increases, work down to 13 inches and then split, I'm just following the pattern, which I've kind of written all over because I've done all these calculations, and I tend to write everything on the pattern so that I'm not looking for extra pieces of paper. But I'm rather delighted with that. So I couldn't enter my own Modification MAL with it because I won't be modifying much, but I will be. The joy of gauge, row and stitch. So this is where I'm at. It's quite a simple knit, and I may carry on with that. I may work on some of my other works in progress, but I just thought that was an interesting exercise in using a difference in gauge to your advantage, albeit completely unplanned. So my lovelies, that is it for this month. Thank you for being here. If you watch the weekly vlogs, I'll see you on Friday. Otherwise, I'll see you at the end of July. Congratulations to the winners. Please, could you get in touch with me by the 25th of July? If I haven't heard from you by then, I will redraw the prizes. So I hope, that's a month, so I'm hoping that's long enough. Congratulations again. And I hope everyone's doing well. We've just gone past the solstice, so the nights will start drawing in now. But wherever you are in the world, I hope that life is treating you kindly. I hope the weather is treating you kindly. If you need rain, may it fall softly upon you. If you need sun, may it shine on your face. If you need a blizzard, may you get it a long way from me. So thanks everyone for being here. Take very good care of yourselves. Hope you have time to do the things you enjoy. Happy crafting, all the fun stuff. Take care, and I'll see you again soon. Thanks very much. Bye-bye.